At the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office, a custody training officer, a CTO, is the first point of contact for a new trainee and the first step towards leadership for the CTO. In their first year of employment, a custody deputy may often feel alone and isolated. Because of their lack of experience, trainees may make a mistake that can get them and others hurt or killed. Trainees can become excessively paranoid and need to learn how to channel their fears to stay alive. They need to learn to be firm but fair, and that honor, truth, and respect are necessary if they are to get off training and survive the constant berating by inmates. The trait theory of leadership is one of the earliest theories of leadership. By focusing on certain traits of successful leaders, CTOs will produce quality trainees. This approach assumes that traits produce patterns of behavior that are consistent across situations. One of the most prominent trait theories on leadership is the 5-factor personality model, also known as the Big Five. This model identifies 5 traits that make an effective leader: neuroticism, extroversion, openness, agreeableness, and conscientiousness. Just as the Big Five helps to identify positive leadership traits, the negative side of personality traits help to recognize negative attributes of leaders. This is important for those in leadership positions to recognize just as much as the positive leadership traits. For example, some supervisors are only leaders by title. Many times these assigned leaders may not be effective due to dark side traits that can be summarized into 6 personality traits: argumentative, interpersonal, insensitivity, narcissism, fear of failure, perfectionism, and impulsivity. Each one of these traits could lead to employee dissatisfaction, high turnover rates, and poor performance. Since I began my career as a custody deputy, I have seen 9 trainees in our department quit and another 5 not make it off training. Since becoming a CTO, I wanted to not only put an end to the high turnover rate of newly hired custody deputies, but also figure out why others were not succeeding. Looking at the trait theory of leadership, I sat down with each new trainee appointed to me and asked them questions about themselves. This showed them that I cared about them and that they were more than just another custody deputy. This showed my extroversion, my conscientiousness, and agreeableness. If the trainee had already worked in a different post with a different trainer, I deciphered what teaching methods used by other CTOs worked and which did not. Those trainees that were struggling with training conveyed to me that their CTOs tended to lean on the side of negative personality traits: argumentative, interpersonal insensitivity, narcissism, fear of failure, perfectionism, and impulsivity. One trainee told me that her training was more like a hazing and that she was not learning anything because she was already expected to know what to do. When she asked her CTO questions, he berated her and would yell at her in front of inmates. This interpersonal insensitivity made her feel like management did not care and were aloof. These individual traits themselves may not be detrimental. However, when all are intertwined, the characteristics can lead to career abandonment. Donald Goff wrote an article called "What Do We Know About Good Community College Leaders?" A study in leadership trait theory. Goff notes that it was assumed that potential leaders could be identified by observing and identifying personality traits, and that the individual had to have leadership traits as part of their personality. However, the traits could be honed through practice, training, and experience. Goff notes that in a report to the American Association of Community Colleges, Hockaday and Poirier provided a list of 9 traits needed by the effective community college president. Those 9 traits are vision, integrity, confidence, courage, technical knowledge, collaborators, persistence, good judgment, and the desire to lead. Again, the trait theory argues that the individual requires leadership traits as a part of his or her personality, and that the traits can be polished in order to be a successful community college leader. So let's dive further into the trait theory and talk about transactional versus transformational forms of leadership. Transactional leadership is mainly based on process and control and requires a strict management structure. It is geared more towards maintaining the day-to-day operations of an organization. On the other hand, transformational leadership is based on inspiring others to follow, and as such, it requires a high degree of coordination, communication, and cooperation. Transformational leaders set goals and use incentives to push their employees to perform the best they can. They also provide them with what they need to grow professionally. According to Chow, in the Chinese female leadership styles from the perspectives of trait and transformational theories, there are substantial differences between the two approaches. For instance, in terms of setting organizations' goals, only the transactional leader sets the goal for subordinates to follow, while the transformational leader and followers work together to plan and execute the goal. Therefore, the transactional leader tends to monitor and correct followers' behaviors, while the transformational leader instructs and assists followers in solving problems. In terms of empowerment, the transactional leader considers empowerment and authorization as a behavior to avoid responsibilities, while the transformational leader emphasizes the cultivation of specialty and enhancement of skills and knowledge for followers. The transformational leader empowers the followers and gives them self-development opportunities. It can be difficult to decide which leadership style is better, but rather it is important to decide which one works best for each company. Some organizations need stricter policies and procedures in place and a clear chain of command. Others work best in a more flexible environment where leadership sets the example and creates goals. Both types of leadership styles might be needed in the same organization to offset each other and help accomplish growth and development goals. Transactional leadership is best known for when a leader uses both rewards and punishments to encourage followers. This type of leadership is often seen in military and in industries in which the leader values order and structure. Transactional leadership is not a good fit for places that produce creativity and innovative ideas, but rather places where hierarchy is critical. The concept of contingency comes up frequently in discussions about transactional leadership. As mentioned in the Art and Science of Leadership, through the use of contingent reward, leaders offer followers promised rewards when they accomplish their goals. This means that workers know their reward is contingent upon them completing the tasks that have been assigned to them. The leader must set clear expectations that are understood by the follower. On the other end of the spectrum, transformational leadership allows a leader to inspire people to achieve results. It gives followers more power to make decisions once they have been trained. As stated by Kenneth Leithwood in the article The Move Towards Transformational Leadership, the collective action that transforming leadership generates empowers those who participate in the process. There is hope, there is optimism, there is energy. In essence, transformational leadership renews people's commitment and reconstructs their systems of accomplishing goals. These leaders tend to lead by example and are able to use their past, inspiration, and empathy to engage followers. They possess courage, confidence, and a willingness to make sacrifices for the greater good. As stated in the Art and Science of Leadership, transformational leadership includes three factors: charisma and inspiration, intellectual stimulation, and individual consideration. When combined, these factors allow a leader to achieve large-scale change. When using charisma and inspiration, a bond begins to form between the leader and the follower. The result is loyalty and trust in the leader. The second factor is intellectual stimulation, which is the leader's ability to motivate followers to solve problems by empowering them to develop imaginative resolutions. The last factor of transformational leadership is individual consideration, in which the leader treats each follower differently but equitably, providing everyone with individual attention. As a result, followers feel special, stimulated, driven, and established. As a custody training officer, I've used both transactional and transformational leadership to help guide my trainees. As with any leadership style, both have pros and cons, and I have found that with the right balance of both styles, trainees are more successful. When I meet a new trainee, I tend to start off with a more transactional approach by setting my expectations and providing them with a list of what is expected and how to accomplish those tasks. Having to document the trainee's progress each day has served CTOs well in the past. It enables other CTOs to see prior documentation on what the trainee has accomplished or what they may be struggling on. Like any position in law enforcement, there is a time frame in which trainees must complete their training. If it looks as though they may not make it off training in time, it is documented and put in their file. These guidelines help the trainees stay focused, and they are usually able to complete the task at hand. As the trainee progresses throughout training and proves that they are capable of completing tasks given to them, I take a more transformational approach. Giving a trainee the power to make decisions empowers them and helps them build a bond between the two of us. I use intellectual stimulation to motivate the trainee to solve problems. When they can solve an issue on their own, they feel motivated and more established as a custody deputy. By the time the trainee is off training, they know they have earned it, and bonds begin to form and relationships developed between the CTO and trainee. In conclusion, by utilizing the trait theory of leadership, CTOs at the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office are able to find out which traits they possess that will lead to a higher success rate of trainees. The department can utilize this information to not only produce newly hired deputies of high quality, but also CTOs that can make a difference. By utilizing the Big Five leadership traits, turnover rates and overall workplace satisfaction will increase for everyone. Like any good leader, given the right situation, using both transactional and transformational leadership styles will help them get the most out of their followers. Transactional style of leadership is prone to being insufficient in developing the maximum leadership potential in a trainee. Care should be taken by CTOs not to practice transactional leadership exclusively, otherwise it will lead to the formation of an environment saturated by position, power, perks, and politics. By incorporating transformational leadership during training, leaders can motivate trainees in accomplishing their tasks by empowering their trainees to use their own strengths. By combining transactional with transformational leadership, leaders can emerge from every angle.